Hi, Laura.
Hi, Jules. Happy summer. It is hot here in Florida. So, how's the weather in Philadelphia?
It's actually really nice today. I took my cat out on the deck. That's his favorite thing to do in the morning is coffee time outside on the deck. But we haven't been able to do it. First, we were in a heat wave for several days, and then we were in a rain wave for several days. So he was crying to go out this morning, and I have my Luke's cup of coffee. So I took him out. My phone actually died. So I took my Rory Gilmore reading challenge book outside, which is A Midsummer Night's Dream, and just read that outside with him for 20 minutes.
That's perfect. That's a better way to avoid phone time to actually read. So it is perfect. I'm glad that your cat has able to actually be outside because I know with the heat wave, the little paws can actually burn.
He's really sensitive about it too. It's really funny. The edges of our deck are shaded because there's a little fence around it. So he runs around the edge where it's shaded, and it just cracks us up because this is a cat that we found outside during COVID when we lived in Philly. And when I tell you he lived under cars, he lived under bushes, he'd be out there in all kinds of weather. It'd be pouring, raining, and we'd be looking for him, trying to make him an indoor cat. And now he can't even put his little paw on the deck.
He's living the dream. They fed me. I got mom and dad to take care of me. Life is good.
And especially dad, he loves his dad. So how is the weather in Florida?
So the weather has been 100 degrees, just to opposite in Florida. It is indoor AC all the time. This is what we're doing. We're also having summer storms. I got caught up in the highway with terrible storms. You feel like you're in a hurricane. You feel the wind. You cannot see, no visibility. It is a scary time, but it's nice because I do appreciate storms because otherwise we get drought, and we've been having some wildfires in Florida. So we're trying to avoid any of that stuff. So storms are a good thing. They're just terrible to be caught up in the highway.
Exactly. It's really scary. I've definitely been in some of those situations, but I'm glad you're getting some rain to kind of cool things off. It's the week after 4th of July. So we are in the lazy, hazy days. Me as a baseball fan, we're going into the All-Star break next week, which actually is in Philly. And that's the middle of our season. So it really feels like the middle of summer. And there's something that you and I have been talking about since the beginning of summer, and that is Elin Hilderbrand books.
Yeah.
We've been talking about it, and it's because this question comes up every single year, whether you're an avid reader or really whether you're not an avid reader. It's the same question that we all have every summer, and it's what Elin Hilderbrand book should I read next? She is the queen of the beach reads, and that's why.
But she retired from beach reads.
She retired from beach reads in 2024. She came back with Gossip Girl academia novels with her daughter. And I heard she's writing another book that's for adults that is about writers. Another thing I love about Elin Hilderbrand, of course, we know she's known for her Nantucket novels, but she also loves St. John. And I know you like her books set in St. John.
Those are my preference. I think it's because I grew up in Puerto Rico, which is another U.S. territory. I've gone to St. Thomas. I'm familiar with St. John's. St. John's doesn't have an airport, so you actually have to go to St. Thomas and take a ferry to St. John's. So it's one of those things. But I appreciate a winter romance or juicy stuff happening in warm weather. When I moved up north, I actually had snow and cold weather, but for the most part, it's warm and just Caribbean and beaches in the winter. And so I felt that was my core memory. That was like, I really love the series. Can you write more of the St. John's?
It totally makes sense because I think there's many things that attract me to her novels. They're absolutely delectable, but I go to Martha's Vineyard every summer. And when we're feeling it, we'll take the ferry over to Nantucket for a day. So it gives me those same vibes of something I know and am familiar with. And I've gone to Mitchell's Book Corner. It's where she does all of her book signings every summer. It's once a week every summer she does her book signings, and you can do the special pre-orders from that bookstore. And she did this thing during COVID where she was showing you around on Instagram Nantucket. And then I found some of the places that were in her books. So that's always one of my absolute favorite things to do as a reader, is to blend that with my travel. And then, of course, once in a while, you'll get a Martha's Vineyard setting. And then, ironically, she grew up in the Philadelphia suburbs. So she refers to Philadelphia Eagle sometimes, which of course all of us Philadelphians love. And I think she referred to Villanova in one, and that's where I went to school. I can really connect with the locations.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of it. I love when authors write about where they live and makes the setting so vivid and so lived through. I wish I had the time to write about Puerto Rico and Gossip Girl and all the different things in the Caribbean, because there's such a rich culture. You get to feel it. That's what I love about having a place that's a real life setting, and then actually seeing the transition, because she's been writing this for 20, 30 years. So we've seen the transition of what the stores were in Nantucket at one point to what they are now, how things are moving, and the characters. There's a small town vibe. You're going to see the same people, you're going to have the same routines, you're going to go to the same places, the coffee shop, the bookstore, the bakery. And so you get to have that setting so lived in, and then at the same time build the world. So when you go to read her books, you start revisiting friends. You start seeing, oh, the police chief is the same.
I love the police chief.
I think that's a really cool thing, because essentially you go to Nantucket every summer and you see your friends.
I think you're totally right. There is a familiarity in the books, and she does bring in those little Easter eggs from other novels. And like you said, there's also an evolution. So you really do see things like more diversity as you come into later novels, which is great.
I think that's a really cool thing to see an author really grown into her space. And I think in some ways, as a reader, it's really exciting when you have a backlist of 20, 30 books set in the same world, and then you can just go dive into it. And then the beauty of it, because it's set in the real world, there are other authors who are writing at the same location. So you get to experience it in multiple ways. It's literary travel. Essentially, I don't have to go to Nantucket to feel Nantucket. I don't have to go to New England to feel like I need a lobster roll. I actually get to experience that through writing. And that's a really cool thing to do as someone who is hiding over the summer in Florida. Summer in Florida is terrible.
And she really does excel of all authors. I think that really is one of her strongest suits, is really making you feel like you're there. And it's through these descriptions of food. The descriptions are so rich that it really does make you feel like you're there. She'll talk about the candle in the hotel, and you can almost smell it because her descriptions are so rich.
Yes, I am thrilled for her to try new things, but at the same time, sad.
And it may just need time too. Maybe she'll go into St. John's after this, or maybe a few years from now, an idea that she didn't think she could ever have will pop out of nowhere. Do you know offhand how many you have read? I have a list of 38, including her short stories.
I probably have read about 8 or 9. I started the winter series, which is the Christmas books in Nantucket, but I didn't finish. So it's not as much as I thought it was, but I was not tracking books. So it may be more.
I've read a massive amount, but I will give you a caveat. So out of the 38 I had listed, I read 33, but many of those are short stories. I think she has about 25 novels. And for many of them, she wrote either prequels or sequels that are short stories. And then there was a compilation book, all the short stories. I brought that to Martha's Vineyard, I think maybe 2 years ago, because I thought it would be nice to have Elin Hilderbrand, but also not the commitment of a novel that I could sit on the beach and within an hour read a short story, go sit by the pool, read a short story. So that's really how I got to such a big number. So what we're going to do today is our top 5 Elin Hilderbrand books. And we're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So everyone's got to stick around and see what we picked for number 1 for each of us. So what is your number 5 Elin Hilderbrand book out of the books that you've read?
I think it's A Rumor, which is very gossipy, very fun. I read this about 11 years ago. It's about 2 friends who all seems to be perfect, and then there's rumors happening, and then we see that there's actually marital strife and just basically the small town vibes. It reminded me of Puerto Rico, where everyone is in each other's business, and then it's not what it looks like, and then there's more nuance what's going on. So it's very gossipy. It's interesting because one of the husbands his name is Freddie. And I was like, is it connected to the other book that I read? Because they're both in real estate. So I was like, what is going on? So I'm trying to see, because I haven't read these books in a long time. So I may go back to see if there's a connection between characters. But it has the typical Nantucket. If you like Gossip Girl, this is the book for you.
I don't know offhand. The name Freddie sounds familiar.
Silver Girl's husband.
Silver Girl, yes. But he's a real estate agent, right?
Yeah.
So we don't know if it's the same one.
I don't think it's the same one. Silver Girl was beforehand, so I don't know if it's a son or someone related to it. But because every character is intermingled, I'm not sure if they're all related to each other. But usually when there's the same name, typical authors don't have the same name twice. It's interesting. So I don't know. I have to go back. Maybe do a little reread. Maybe go back to Silver Girl. Maybe go back to the rumor and then see which one if they're connected. And I'll share in a Substack note.
I feel like this one totally tracks for you because I know you really well and you're a big Bravo addict. And Bravo is very gossipy.
It's like Housewives. It's essentially you're watching the Housewives in Nantucket.
That totally makes sense. This is one of the few I have not read yet, but I certainly hope to because I'm also a Bravo addict.
Yes. Okay, so tell me your number 5.
Okay, so my number 5 is the Hotel Nantucket. So this is one, I made a social media post earlier in summer because I wanted to at least give people an idea of what Elin Hilderbrand book to start with. And this is the one I most often recommend starting with. It was a 4 out of 5 star for me. So the rest of my list are 5 out of 5. But I still love this for newbies because it has a little bit of everything. So there's so many things that she's known for: the Nantucket setting, rich people problems, the food descriptions. And here we also get a hotel and a little bit of a light mystery. And of course, drama and romance. Everything you would want from an Elin Hilderbrand novel, all in one book. And what this one reminded me of, speaking of Bravo, it reminds me of Below Deck. Below Deck is basically a reality show that takes place on a yacht. So you see the drama within the guests, the drama within the staff, and then the drama among them when they're together. And that's really what you get here. So the staff is aiming to get this 5 key rating. So they're working towards that over the summer. And then it brings in all of this drama, and there's a little bit of a ghost story and some romance. So again, this is the one that I recommend everyone start with. And there's another thing that I love about it. At the end, Elin has about a 20-page or so guide to Nantucket. So she calls it her blue book. And for me, I'm keeping this for good. I'm going to refer to it every time I go to Nantucket. So this is one that I recommend you get in print so that you can keep it on your shelf. And I will also note that it is based on an actual hotel that is in Nantucket, and it's called the Nantucket Hotel and Resort. So I'm linking that in the show notes if people want to compare the two.
Yes. Oh, I need to just plan a trip to Nantucket. You have to plan it ahead.
We plan Martha's Vineyard usually a year in advance. It's a family trip, and we do have a pretty big house because there's at least 15 people in the house. So we need a pretty big amount of space, and there's cribs. We have a lot of needs. So that would be really hard to get if we waited longer. But I don't necessarily know how Nantucket is. And of course, you can do Cape Cod. I would imagine it's easier to stay at Cape Cod and then just go over for a day the way we do.
Cape Cod is just as busy as Nantucket. So it's a lot of real estate is taken over by the New England travel. So it's one of those that you have to plan ahead, or maybe go in the off season, the shoulder season, maybe in September, maybe in May before the season starts.
Yeah, I know in December they do a Christmas stroll. That's a really big event around Christmas time. The only thing I would say is a lot of things in the off season aren't always opened. So I would recommend a shoulder. May, September, some stuff will still be opened and you'll still get decent weather and be able to visit some stuff. And if some stuff is closed, that's okay. So what is your number 4?
I would say Swan Song. Cheap ads. One less job before I retire. I think it brought out the rich people behaving badly, coming to Nantucket, building this place, and people questioning the changes that are happening, as well as the new era of police or new people in the town taking over. I think it's a really interesting dynamic because we're closing a chapter, but someone may leave it open for new characters to come. And then we have a mystery, what happened to Coco? And that's part of the thread, but you get the sense of Ellen's really closing that chapter in this book.
This one was her swan song, her final novel. It begins with a house burning down to the ground. And I just love when books begin that way because you just know there's going to be so much drama to get you to that point. And Ed Capanash, who is the police detective, has to come back. He wants to retire. And meanwhile, the couple, they're a new couple on Nantucket. And that's another fun part. Some people say there's a few different types of plots in the world. And one of them is a stranger comes to town. And this is about this Australian couple coming to town. And everyone's talking about them, again, like a Bravo show. And at the same time, the house burns down, their assistant goes missing off of a boat. And what I loved, this couple brings so much to the town over the course of that summer. I could not stop thinking about what a pink and white party would look like if I had it, or even a book club meeting for this book, because you can do the rosé, cotton candy. She had all kinds of things. Vodka soaked tomatoes with basil salt. It was the most delectable food. I almost wish they put this pink and white party when they did the Perfect Couple adaptation, so we could see it on the screen. I loved how she did all these Easter eggs, and I listened on audio, and she actually narrates the final chapter.
Yes.
It's a tall order to do your final novel knowing it's going to be your final novel. And I think especially because she's so known for this world, almost like Harry Potter is known, like it's a whole world. And I really did think she brought everything that we wanted.
Yes, she did.
And into the pop culture, the romance, the drama.
She actually gave us closure on many of the characters.
I decided to do show and tell for this one. Because it's her final book, I ordered it from Mitchell's Book Corner in Nantucket, and they usually do little gifts if you pre-order through them. So I got this magnet that says we'll always have Nantucket, and I keep it on my book cart because book cart is magnetic. So I just keep it right on there. And then I got the special edition of Swan Song, which has these end papers, which are also illustrated. And then she also signed it. I don't have a lot of signed books, but this is one that is on my shelf of signed books. So that is my show and tell for Swan Song. Speaking of the perfect couple, that is actually my number 4 of Elin Hilderbrand. So this one, what I love about this, it's another trope that I love, which is a death at a wedding. And of course, it's on Nantucket. And the reason it works for me is because tensions run so high at weddings.
Yes.
It's the perfect setting for a mystery. So someone dies and you don't know if it's a murder or an accident. And of course, then you don't know if it is a murder whodunit. And in the process, you learn all the secrets of the family who is at the wedding. This was actually the first Elin Hilderbrand book that was adapted. I had chills when it started.
Yes, the song.
So I wanted to ask you, there was this little flash mob kind of dance scene. I think it was the beginning of every episode. And I want to know, it was a love it or hate it thing. Were you on the love or hate?
I loved it. I was doing the little dance and the song, but it was a good adaptation. And it kept you on the edge of your seat trying to figure out, are you going to be faithful to the book?
And there are several differences. Several characters change. You actually don't get to meet Ed Capenash. And then the ending is different.
Yeah, if you're one of those people who love the faithful book to meditation, that's not it. But it gives you the vibes of a stranger joining a rich family, a writer who is bigger than life, and a husband who's trying to figure things out. And then there's all these secrets and a family that's just dysfunctional.
I also loved Dakota Fanning is also in this.
Yes, and she was great.
I thought she was awesome. It was just nice for me to see.
Yeah, I remember when she was a little girl. She's someone who seems stable, who has a good sisterly relationship with her sister, and seems really grown up. She just continued to work her craft.
So what is your number 3 pick?
Okay, so it was The Perfect Couple.
So perfect timing for The Perfect Couple then. And then my number 3 is actually Swan Song.
Okay, so my number 2 is Silver Girl. And it's because I love a good scam. I'm training to be a white collar investigator to be certified. And so this one features a Ponzi scheme that fell down in the aftermath of the wife. The wife of the guy who did the Ponzi scheme goes back to Nantucket to see her friend who has lost her husband. So they're in their 50s, and it's just, what do you do in middle age after a devastation? Now I'm looking at 50s 5 years from now. I would like to revisit this book from a different perspective. It's a really great book if you like rich people behaving badly, at the same time friendships. They're actually long-lasting friendships.
This one did not quite make my top 5, but it definitely could have. It's one that I loved as well. We're seeing more middle-aged protagonists now. I love that the women grew up in Philadelphia, so that was where it became fun for me to get all these little Philadelphia Easter eggs. So this was a great one for me too.
Yeah, for sure. If you have been binging on the Madoffs, all out. There's a couple of memoirs around this. I think this is a book for you. It's what happens to the family affected. There are victims. People are affected. All right, so what's your number 2?
My number 2 is an outlier both for me and for Elin Hilderbrand because it's historical fiction. This is her only historical fiction.
It's summer of 69.
And it reminds me of The Wonder Years. And I know that on The Wonder Years, there's an episode about man going to the moon. And that's part of this summer of 69. That's part of what made me love it. A family who goes to Nantucket every summer to be with their grandmother, 4 siblings. So you have the young girl, Jessie, and then her brother in Vietnam. Her sister is working in Martha's Vineyard. So of course that's perfect for me because that's my true love. And there are some civil rights plots with that. Jessie, the young girl in the book, has his sister pregnant with twins in Boston. So you have all these historic events happening in the summer, and there's a playlist that goes with it. I got so immersed in this time in history that I remember making a Pinterest board of all the different fashion and what the cars looked like. And it's so rare that I immerse myself so wholly in a book. And this was one of the few books that made me do that. So that's why I love it so much.
I need to pick this one up. And I think because we grew up watching, I love the 70s, I love the 60s, I love the 80s.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. So we have made it to number 1.
Yes, we have.
What is your number 1?
It's the Winter in Paradise trilogy. So they have to be read together. They have cliffhangers in the in-betweens. But essentially, Irene has built her dream home in Iowa, and she finds out John may have his double life. He may have had a girlfriend. So they go back to St. John's to pick the remainings. And this was after Christmas with her 2 sons. Ellen actually has spent most of her winters in St. John's, so she's familiar with it. So you get the vibe of it, which is kind of cool. But you get the vibe of what the Caribbean island looks like beyond the tourists, what it looks like when you have a lot of money.
Yeah, similar vibe to A Silver Girl. I enjoyed this trilogy as well. I think that I prefer the New England setting, and that's why it's not in my top 5. But what I think is interesting about this one, so I'm the type of person, you probably are too, that if you're at a pool or at a beach, you're kind of like looking at what everyone else is reading. And this is by far, over the years, the number 1 book and book series I see people reading.
It's just the vibes. You're like, I'm in a Caribbean island. St. John's such a remote island because they don't have an airport. So you have to make an effort. And it's a pretty cool thing too. There's a life happening there.
Yeah, and you do get some interaction with locals in this book. And you also uncover the secret life.
Yeah. God bless double life.
So now on to my number 1 Elin Hilderbrand book. So here's how I'm going to sell it. It is not only my number 1 Elin Hilderbrand book, it is on my list of my favorite summer books, and I read over 125 books set in summer. It's on my top 10, so that's pretty big as well. It's also Katie of Beach Reads and Bubbly's favorite Elin Hilderbrand book, and it's the highest rated on Goodreads, and it is 28 Summers. Here is what's interesting about it too. 28 Summers is about a same time next year romance that occurs every Labor Day weekend on Nantucket over 28 summers, and it does involve cheating.
Yeah.
So that's tough. That's usually very tough in novels, but somehow in this one, it works. And I think there's a few reasons for it. I think the way it's handled is that it's showing you that every relationship is different and complex. So in a weird way, the cheating kind of makes sense. I hope I'm selling this okay, because I know this is a tough one for many people, but I hope you'll trust me that it does work. And then the other thing I loved about it, this is totally going to sell you. So every chapter is a different year over 28 summers.
Yeah.
And the beginning of every chapter, she does this rundown of pop culture, kind of the way, you know, that Billy Joel song, We Didn't Start the Fire, where he's just listing all the pop culture. She does that for a page at the beginning of every chapter. And it is so fun.
Oh gosh, I am getting this one. I am bumping this for sure.
So this one, the other reason that for me, it is number 1 is very situational. This came out during the early days of the pandemic, and I had an advanced copy on audio about a month before it came out. So it was probably a month into the pandemic. And of course, this was a time where we really were going absolutely nowhere. And I would put it in my ears at lunch every day and take a very socially distant walk around the neighborhood. And it felt like the one thing that gave me escapism during that time, which is really what her novels are about. And that can be a different one for every person, which is so special about it because it could be situational. And this happens to be the one that it was for me.
Yes. Oh, I am adding this one. I am really bumping this up because I love a long, slow romance at the same time. And I'm okay with cheating personally. It's part of the complexity of a relationship. And so I think this is like my catnip. And you add the pop culture aspect of it. This is the book.
All right. So if the number one question is what Ellen Hilderbrand book should I read next every summer, then I think the number two question is if I like Ellen Hilderbrand, who else should I read?
So there's three contemporary. I think Game of Inheritance in New England, where the dad dies and the kids have to come back and they all have to do things in order to get the inheritance. It's very rich people behave badly, ridiculous plot. There's two books, The Wash Ashores by Hannah McKinnon. It's a new book that came out this year. She is about to inherit a hotel again in Nantucket, and her grandma is telling her, "This is a trial. You may not get the hotel." There's a romance. And then this one was recommended by my friend Amy. It's Worse Than Strangers by Kylie Letty. She says that this is the perfect bridge from Ellen Hilderbrand. Other authors that I think you should look at the backlist, Jenny Hale has quite a few women's fiction, and even Emily Giffin. I was thinking about it as we were talking. Emily Giffin actually has been writing in the same space. Maybe not Nantucket, New England, but it's the same idea of older characters, family, and stuff.
So what's interesting is that we both brought completely different authors to the table. So it gives people a lot to choose from. I have a pretty big list, and I'll try to go through them really quickly. So two that are Nantucket authors who you will see all over Nantucket, just like Ellen Hilderbrand, are Nancy Thayer and Pamela Kelly. Very similar type of vibes. Another one, I said I go to Martha's Vineyard every year, and a Martha's Vineyard author who I've become friends with is Brooke Leah Foster. And what she writes is historical fiction, but it's very light. So if you like Summer of 69, you're going to want to try her books. And the funny part is she and I had talked for a long time over social media. And then I actually ran into her at the carousel. I'm like, Brooke? And then I know there's another author who I know you and I both enjoy, and that's Christy Woodson Harvey. And she writes very light, North Carolina based.
Yes.
It's another thing where her books are a part of every year for me.
Yes. I look forward to new Christy Woodson Harvey, and I love that this year we got two.
We got the summer one, which I already talked about in my beach reads, and I read that one a little bit earlier.
And then we get the fall one. She goes back to Beach Tree, which I absolutely obsessed with this family.
And the cover, have you seen the cover? It is Gilmore Girls.
Gilmore Girls.
She's actually a Gilmore Girls super fan. She interviewed Kelly Bishop, who plays Emily Gilmore, when her book came out. So another person I put on my list is Dorothea Benton Frank. And she was a very good friend of Ellen Hilderbrand. She did pass away, but she writes Southern beach reads. And I feel like hers are like Ellen Hilderbrand's, but Southern and more like traditional South. And so I know you are familiar with her daughter's work.
Yes, Victoria Benton Frank. And so she's passing on the torch, which is kind of cool to see that. Helena Waltz is another Southern women's fiction. She has a couple books, and they're essentially beach reads. The same elements, we see them in a Southern setting. She has, I think it's good hair, and she's peaches.
So the last one on my big list, I feel like we can't talk about summer beach reads in 2026 without talking about Carly Fortune.
Yes.
So she's Canadian, and her books, I believe all of them are set in Canada, some at the beach, some on a lake. But I feel like she's one of the most popular spicy summer romance authors right now.
Yes, I'm not huge on her top books. I like her other books. For Prince Edward Island is perfect. If you love Anne of Green Gables, you love friendships, and it's just this fun place. You also get to experience Canada.
Yeah, I really liked that. That Prince Edward Island one was This Summer Will Be Different. And that was one of my favorites too.
That's actually my favorite. And Meet Me at the Lake was really good, but that's a harder one that people didn't love. But I was like, I am obsessed. They're like, you wrote it for me. You have grief. You have trying to figure out this dirty dancing complex. I'm like, what more can you ask for?
And of course, her most popular one is Every Summer After, which is a lake romance. Second chance with your first love.
Yes, and there's an adaptation, although watch it at your own risk because the adaptation took different liberties from the book.
And I did try the adaptation, and I absolutely hated it.
I did not. I just waited for the reviews, and I was like, it's okay. I'm going to pass.
Yeah, I did not make it through the first episode. I feel bad saying that, but that's just one person's take on it. I don't think we mentioned, maybe we did earlier, but The 5-Star Weekend, which is an Elin Hilderbrand novel, is coming out July 9th.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to be spending my weekend doing.
Yeah, me too.
And I hope people pick up 5-Star Weekend after watching the adaptation or find one of our top reads to pick. So I know that both of us are doing Substack articles to go with this podcast. And I thought maybe we could end by teasing what we're going to give paid subscribers on our Substack articles that go with this podcast. What are you going to give people who upgrade to a paid subscription to support your work on Substack for this podcast episode?
So, in addition, for all the library access that I'm providing, I want to share the books that I tried this summer that did not quite work for an Elin Hilderbrand bridge. So, there's a couple authors, a couple mysteries that I tried, and they were just not it. Maybe the book or maybe the author, but I'm going to share those books because it may not work for me, but it may work for you. Everyone has a different taste, and that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm doing too. I made a list of all the Elin Hilderbrand books and said whether I read it or didn't read it. There's one that I did not finish. And then for the rest of them, I gave my star rating for them. And I like to do that behind the paywall because that way I can be really honest. I don't want to hurt others' feelings. I gave a couple tips at the end of what I would pick, the two that I really did not like, and how to read the series, which order I recommend reading them in. And then I also made a principal PDF checklist because I know people like myself want to read all of them. So that is behind the paywall as well. And you made a good point that we all read differently. I know you're a very cozy and escapist romance reader and like mysteries as well. I read like Rory Gilmore. I will put both of our Substack links in the show notes. We're halfway through summer. I hope that the second half of your summer involves some Elin Hilderbrand.
And same to you.